Paltrocast. Well, thank you both for doing this. I'll throw the first question at Elizabeth, and we'll make it a two-parter. First, are you Chef Elizabeth? Is that the proper way to address you? And second, how are you today?
Well, yes. I mean, you can call me Elizabeth. You don't have to call me Chef Elizabeth on this podcast. And especially because I'm also like in the film space now, so you're not gonna like call what chef.
Star Elizabeth.
I wear a lot of hats, man.
Right.
But yeah. And then what was your second part of your question?
How are you today?
Oh, I'm good. It was raining all day yesterday. Now it's nice and sunny.
Got it. Well, Pete, same thing at you, Director Pete. I'll call you so far. And do you like to be Pete, or are you Peter to some people?
I'm Pete pretty much everywhere. Some people do call me Peter. It's always fun, but it's usually very specific call to action. Peter, go get that. Peter, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Makes sense. So, Pete, how did you first encounter Elizabeth?
That's a great question. Elizabeth and I were in similar circles when she was in New York. There was this group of guys that would go out and eat dinner everywhere, and she happened to be at an event that they were a part of, and we were both a part of. And then I met her. I liked her. I was a fan of hers when she was on the what was it, Next Iron Chef?
Yeah,
that was and I threw my remote when she lost to Jeffrey Zakarian, and like I was so mad about that. And I was making a documentary about female chefs called Her Name is Chef, and I wanted her to be in this. And long story short, we met, we hit it off, and I was like, I want to keep making projects with this person because as she's kind of alluded to, like, she's an incredible chef and she's been doing so much great stuff in that world, but I think her voice is really important, and I want to tap into every piece of information that she has and has experienced. So that's kind of how it all started.
Now, Elizabeth, is that how you remember it, or did you meet Pete once and he doesn't remember before that?
No, that's how it. Yeah, it was that group Men Who Dine, and it was just it's all true. We just kind of like did that film, and when we started talking in January 2020 about doing another film together, and then we're very surprised when everything hit, and then we still kind of like we're having this conversation, and then we were like, wow, we need to make this film like now. And then we had to wait till June 1st so we could go back outside and make that film. But it organically sort of happened just because we had already had such a great project with Her Name is Chef.
Got it. Well, Sorry We're Closed is the latest and the greatest from both of you. And one of the focal points of it is restaurants that have closed during COVID and as a result of COVID, et cetera. And this latest season of The Chef alludes to that a little bit. Has there been any feedback from the Bear people of, hey, same thing right here? Has anyone else pointed that out at this juncture?
I think that I've had conversations with people about do I watch The Bear, and how real is it? And I haven't had anybody really draw any comparisons with our film, just because it's I mean, we definitely tried to show the sort of chaos of not necessarily the chef world, but of the time, and certainly the chef's mind. So, I mean, there are many times in the filmmaking process where Pete and I would talk about with our editors, just wanting to create a sort of visual or audio chaos, but like somebody who could navigate through the chaos. And I think that, and having filmed 50 chefs was certainly a different kind of chaos.
Yeah, making sure everyone gets their screen time on top of standing out, to say the least.
That was the thing.
And knowing that everybody had something to contribute. Like, I really feel like I don't want to listen to only a couple of chefs in my life. I feel like I'm trying to listen to everybody's experience with food and hospitality and nurturing and all the things that come in the food space. But there are so many different kinds of food and history and traditions and approaches, artistic approaches, all kinds of things involved in every single chef's head. So I just wanted to get really a temperature of all of them.
I love the comparison to the Bear, though, and I know that they did mention COVID a couple of times this last season, right? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, they, without giving too much away, one of the subplots is all the restaurants that have closed due to COVID. So the Bear doesn't exactly go, hey, we're in 2022, but you have to guess it is a post-COVID world.
They talk about that, I think. Yeah, I love that comparison. Thank you. I love that show. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that you love the show. To me, there's a little too much yelling. I love the food. I don't love the yelling, but hey, we're not talking about the Bear. We're talking about Sorry We're Closed. And Pete, how long did it take for you to conceptualize Sorry We're Closed to finishing it? In other words, you can have a great idea, but at the end of the day, you're still working on color correction and music clearances and all that kind of stuff.
It's a good question too. Elizabeth and I really conceptualized this film together. I want to just point that out.
No disrespect there, Elizabeth.
Yeah, like we
director. Sometimes I assume that the director has an extra 1 or 2 months in that studio, windowless studio space watching.
I would say though, I mean, it did initially come to me that there was a project to be made about chefs that were struggling with mental health. Sure. Then I contacted Elizabeth. Then we sat together at a restaurant in New York City, and then from that point on, it kind of like just happened. And it was really after we did some sort of little podcast thing with getting some of the chefs together, where Elizabeth was like, hey, we need to go out and do this right now. And I was like, okay, yes, chef. And I was like, then we started putting people together to like help us make all of that happen. But it did take, it took us 3 years to make that movie, a movie that you shot basically in like a 5-month window, going in for extra B-roll. And I always want more B-roll of a drink or of a chef or of a dish or whatever, because when we first went out, we couldn't do a lot of that. We couldn't get a lot of that stuff. But then we were like, well, we need some of these additional pieces. What I love the most about the film is that a lot of it was, you just talked about directing. It was like, it was a hands-off approach for me. I didn't have to do a lot. Elizabeth was guiding those conversations with her friends. And even if she didn't know the chef, she was able to have those deeply inside conversations. And so it made the director's job, like sometimes the director's job is to do nothing, actually.
Get the name attached to get it made sometimes.
Sure. Yeah. But like when you're working with someone like Elizabeth, it's like she knows where to go, where I can only help say, can you do that again? Or can we focus in on that moment again? You know what I mean? But she's the guide. It's her journey. It's her story.
I mean, what happened too is that, we started, all right, let me round up some chefs in Los Angeles, because we're both based in Los Angeles now. Mm-hmm. And then, and started, I put together a whole bunch of questions that I might ask and sent it to the chefs. And then starting with Nancy Silverton, who said to me, Elizabeth, you're not going to ask me how I got started cooking. And I was like, no, because it's me and you, like this is a chef to chef conversation. It's not a journalist. It's not coming at you from honestly, from like a director's perspective. It's like, this is me and you having a conversation about what's going on right now. And here's all the other things that I think are kind of wrong in the business. Can we kind of like, so as I'm asking those questions, I'm not asking 40 questions to each person. I'm sort of like piecing it together going, okay, I got a really good soundbite from them. And then moving on to the next person, and then the next city, and then how, I have different histories with different people, or a few of the people I don't know that well, but I'm trying to understand how they're dealing with this part of town or whatever. And then what I love about this filmmaking process is that we never set out to have this. When I had the conversation with Lincoln Carson about shutting down this really, expensive restaurant in downtown LA, mm-hmm. it hit really close to home. And so, when Peter and I were like, oh, well, we should shoot some like stuff of Elizabeth cooking, because we can't really shoot all these other chefs cooking because they won't let us come indoors right now. So not only did we have to go back and Peter get some B-roll with some, with some of these different chefs like a year later, but shooting the stuff at my apartment was a great idea because, you know, there at least we have some really beautiful food shots. You know, like we had to kind of put that back into it because at the end of the day, and the first rounds of editing, we were like, well, shit, we have some great stories here, but we don't really have a ton of great food footage, and like, and everybody's wearing a mask, you know.
The food documentary, there should be some food, right? Yeah.
Mission accomplished right there. Well, you raise a really good point, Elizabeth, where I'm so tired of hearing the origin stories of every chef. What I like to hear instead is what's the number 2 hobby or the passion besides food. And I find that almost every chef, it's music. I own the first few Jason Falkner records, so
right on
about that. I'm a longtime fan of not just one Falkner, but 2 Falkners right there. And I see photos and vinyl behind Pete as well. So Elizabeth, what is the number 2 for you? Is it music or film or sports, or what is it?
Yeah, it's all those things you just mentioned.
I know. I was like, which one is she going to answer?
I mean, to try to keep my sanity, I need to play a lot of sports, but also it's funny because I really had my hand in a lot of the music selection in our film, because I do constantly think that I need, and I'm consistently making playlists, and I need a soundtrack all the time in my life, like all the time. I need different, you know, themes of music, just, and that kind of fits into my restaurant world too, because I'm highly tuned in to what people are playing in the background in music, in restaurants. And also I've lived through different periods of time where it was like Muzak to you know, people like the restaurants in the, I think it was like in the late 90s or early 2000s, where all of a sudden the music just got rocking and loud in restaurants. And you know, I'm really, and I've also obviously owned restaurants, and I've had people playing random music that they like, and I'm like, where did that come from? This doesn't belong on our playlist. And you know, so yeah, it's important to me.
Got it. Now, who are some of those records and photos behind you?
Bob Dylan, some Rolling Stones are back there, and just my other world of a podcast of an actress that I'm a big fan of. So that's what mine is. But my other passion is food, which is why I keep coming back to making food documentary pieces all the time, because I just love to eat and I love to hear the world of the chefs. I think Elizabeth and I have said a bunch of times through this that the food space and the film space have very similar traits to them. Yeah. And I think that's why we worked so well together, because we just came at it from like, okay, well, the DP is our, you know, our line cook in a way, you know, a very creative line cook or something like that, you know. So yeah,
that Jon Favreau movie kind of put all the film chef similes or metaphors or whatever the correct term is into the whole place, about the studio system rejecting your passion project, so you have to do the corporate thing. So every now and then you do find people like yourselves, like Jon Favreau, et cetera, who get it. So congratulations on that. And the last question I have for both of you, and I don't know if this gets a 2-second no or a lengthy monologue from each of you, are we allowed to know what's next from you? Because of strikes and embargoes, you never know what you're allowed to say. So Elizabeth, at you first, are you allowed to say what you're working on besides promoting Sorry We're Closed?
Yeah, I've been working on my writing a lot. I have been working on a manuscript for a memoir for a long time, but now I'm kind of a little bit tired of chef memoirs personally. And I tried to put a book out a couple of years ago before the pandemic that Mr. Bourdain really liked the early drafts of, that I could never get published during the insane political times, because everybody was only publishing political books or people that were coming out of the White House. And so, you know, I've gotten to this point now where part of the message that I wanted to put out there was that struggle I had during the 2008 stock market crash, and that came out in the film. So I have I do write a lot. I write a lot of stories. I've been taking writing classes over the last couple of years because a lot of them turned virtual.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I mean, I'm definitely interested in other documentary or series topics. And I'm also really interested in even fiction and writing like a script or something eventually here.
So multiple creative avenues from you. That's what we're learning right here. Multiple business avenues, but you have to keep checking the social media to know what's next.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes these things take time too. I'm really interested in is like cooking that's inconvenient, like not convenience. Like I want to show you how things take time. Like really good stuff takes time. It's not like something that should just be like a 30-minute hack. I'm not interested in that.
Got it. So look for 88-minute meals coming soon. Pete, besides promoting Sorry We're Close and besides your podcast, are we allowed to know what's next or just
I'm working on a documentary about this amusement park in North Carolina called the Land of Oz, which went viral a few years ago for being abandoned when it wasn't abandoned. There's a missing Dorothy dress. There's an unsolved mystery of a fire. So I'm deep in this space. I've been flying back and forth to Oz, but always fun telling people that every month, and it's just been really exciting. I'll be there in September back at Oz. So that's what I'm currently working on. I've got a couple of other things in the pipeline as well. So keeping busy.
Congratulations on also both being interesting all these years later. So thank you for your time, and really congratulations on Sorry We're Closed, because not only is it a great piece of art, but it helps a lot of people tell their stories, pros and cons of it all, and really looking forward to what's coming next from both of you.
It's so nice. Thanks, Darren.
Paltrocast.